Hey guys, my name is Julian, your solar expert, and today we're going to be comparing two different solar systems, the Enphase system versus the Tesla system. Now, most people, I think, get a little bit confused about which one is better. Obviously, Tesla is a bigger worldwide brand name. Enphase is, of course, still a multi-billion-dollar publicly traded company, but these are two of the most commonly used and popular ecosystems, I should say, in terms of solar systems available. Now, neither of these companies actually make solar panels, and I'm going to be explaining what these companies really do and the advantages and disadvantages of both Enphase and Tesla. So with that being said, what is the goal of these two companies? Enphase's goal is to make the most premium decentralized AC coupled systems. And so what I mean by that is Enphase is trying to be the Mercedes or the BMW, right? They're trying to be a very high-end premium product that isn't necessarily the cheapest. While Tesla's goal is to basically bring a technology to the masses, and this has always been Elon's goal, right? Love him or hate him, he's been saying this for a long time. His goal is to make renewable energy and technology affordable for the everyday masses, right? And so Tesla's goal is not necessarily to go make the most premium, high-end option. Their goal is to make something that is affordable or can hopefully be affordable to as many people as possible. So right from the beginning, those are the mindsets of the two companies that are designing the systems. And so I just think that's something that's really important to kind of understand just right out of the gate. Now, that's not to say that Tesla, is cheap and sucks and Enphase is incredible, has zero problems and is better in every single way. That's not true. There are some pros and cons to both of these, setups, but in general, I would say that right out of the gate, Enphase has a higher quality product in terms of their entire ecosystem that they've built. I think, personally. That's, of course, for you to decide if it's worth it, though. So let's get into more of kind of what these companies do and the pros and cons. But of course, first, if you are in the market and you are comparing these two systems, I personally sell and consult projects all over the United States. We actually cover about 30 states. We're always trying to grow our territory, but I've also built up a network of the top, most knowledgeable solar consultants around the country that I have partnered with. And so if you are in the market and in any of these states in green, please do not hesitate to reach me at 760-473-5878. All of my information is right in the description below. Please reach out. We'd love to help you go solar. So let's get into a little bit more of what these companies do. So first off, what does Enphase really make? Because like I said, neither of these companies actually make solar panels. What these companies make is inverters, batteries, and software. So for those of you who don't know, with your solar panel system, there are inverters that are needed. This converts the direct current that solar panel produces to AC current. And there's two main architectures. This is done either through a microinverting system like Enphase makes, where every single panel has a small inverter underneath that is responsible for just that one panel and gives you independent performance, independent monitoring ability, and ultimately a lot more of a plug and play type of system. Tesla, on the other hand, because it obviously costs more money to have a microinverter under every panel, they make and are more focused on centralized inverters. In the Powerwall 3's case, it's technically a hybrid inverter, but ultimately there are, in most cases, one inverter that all of the solar panels use to have their power inverted from DC to AC, or in the Powerwall 3's case, the one inverter inside the battery is responsible for both the solar and the battery. And so obviously, this is going to bring down the cost because just the raw hardware and material that you need to build a Tesla system is less than an Enphase system where there's microinverters under every panel, and the batteries have, of course, their own inverters as well. So just overall, it's more equipment that you're getting with Enphase, and you're decentralizing the inversion, which of course is better because the issue with the single inverter is that that one inverter is now something that your entire system is reliant on. And if that one inverter fails, which is the Achilles heel of these systems, it's always an inverter, it seems, to fail. If something does fail, then the whole system is down until that inverter is replaced. Whereas with an Enphase system, if you have one microinverter that fails, only that one panel is going to be affected. Or even in the battery, if you have one microinverter that fails in one of the Enphase batteries, then you actually still have the majority of that battery working. So it really is just a matter of, do you feel like it's worth it to spend the extra money to have that decentralized risk mitigation? And in my opinion, it really just depends on what your main goals are. Are your main goals to save as much money right out of the gate? In that case, it could be the Tesla system that's better for you. But if your goal is to have, more of like the highest quality system that's available, you may want to look more at a microinverting system. Now, both of these companies also, other than the inverters and the different architectures, they also both manufacture batteries. These are more the same than different. The actual batteries themselves are LFP cells, and really there's only, to my knowledge, 4 manufacturers worldwide that actually produce and manufacture these LFP cells, and both Enphase and Tesla purchase these cells and put them in their battery product. And so, to my knowledge, the actual cells are more the same than different. The other difference, I would say, is the softwares that these companies make. When you are going with Enphase and Tesla, it's almost like choosing, Microsoft versus Apple, right? It's like, which software user interface do you want to be dealing with? With Tesla, if you go with a Powerwall 3, you're going to be using the Tesla Energy app, which is pretty cool. If you already have a Tesla vehicle, you can have one app that shows your solar, battery, and your vehicle charging all in one, which is pretty sleek. Whereas with Enphase, you would have to have, potentially 2 different apps to monitor your EV charging and your solar system. But the Enphase app is a lot more, in my opinion, user-friendly, and it gives you a lot more transparency to actually see what's going on with your system, because you can see every individual panel. And so if anything's not working right, it's not some mystery where you feel like, as the owner of this system, the visibility of what could really be going wrong is, behind the curtain and you can't see. That's one of the biggest complaints that we have with these centralized inverting systems, where you don't have module level monitoring. Because if something isn't working right and you've purchased this system thinking you're going to get, let's just say, 10,000 kilowatt hours a year, and the system's only producing 7,500, but you can't actually see what each individual panel is doing, it could be really frustrating for you, because it's just not possible to really see, and you'd have to have the tech come out and do the troubleshooting. And then what if the tech comes off the roof and doesn't give you what the answer that you're expecting? Where with the microinverters, you can run a report on literally a single panel, and it's so easy and transparent to just see what is going on yourself. That's one of the main reasons I really love the Enphase system, that I think is very underrated. And a lot of people, they don't really consider that they may need to almost prove to the contractor that something isn't working right. It seems like that shouldn't be the case, but in reality, being able to easily point to something and say that isn't right, it's easy for both of us to see, makes life a lot easier as the customer. So that's a very valuable tip over, for me in the last 7 years of doing this, what I've learned. So the software is really valuable. Neither of them are perfect. There are both little glitches, things that aren't perfect about both softwares, but in general, they're both really great. And it's just really a matter of, do you value that individual panel monitoring and that transparency that it brings? But you can have any solar panel with either of these systems and link them in. That really doesn't matter. Both of these are going to be more panel agnostic. Even with Tesla, if you purchase a solar system through Tesla directly, they'll say these are the Tesla solar panels, but really they're just Q cells panels that Tesla has white labeled and is rebranding. And so you don't have to use that. You can just go with another contractor, use the Tesla Powerwall 3, and use any other panel. All right, let's get into kind of some of the pros of each, the Enphase and the Tesla. So the pros, I did mention this with Enphase already, you get module level performance, because what the microinverters do is help you maximize getting all the power out of those solar panels. Still to this day, I know that these Tesla systems are advertising their 6 MPPTs, which is like 6 individual performing zones, but still there are production problems when it comes to this stringing, and sometimes you can't always make the strings exactly like you're imagining is going to be super ideal, because it's more complicated than you may think on the surface. And so there are still some production issues with shaded roofs, even with these multiple MPPT systems. And so that is really where in terms of production, the microinverters really shine. And then also in terms of service, it is super easy and visible for everyone to see and pinpoint exactly where an issue is happening. There's a lot of these arguments like, oh, if you go with microinverters, the service is going to require getting up on the roof and it's this big deal. But that's such a silly argument because these installers are up on roofs all day, every day. It takes the guy literally 5 minutes to pull up to your house, put the ladder up, climb up, unscrew the panel that's there, take the microinverter out that's broken, put the new one in, and put the panel, screw the panel back in. Like, it's very easy. It takes 10 to 15 minutes. And so when you know exactly where the problem is, it's easy. With these string systems, especially in the past, with these more older school string systems, it could have taken a tech multiple hours of testing just to find where the problem is, because these are like Christmas light systems where the weakest performer brings down the whole thing. And if one panel or if one connector is broken, then everything is broken. But there's no monitoring to tell you exactly which connector or panel is actually broken. So the contractors like this as well for their benefit of being able to not have to waste a bunch of time and just quickly go do a quick service job and know exactly what they're doing ahead of time. So AC coupling, in my opinion, can be more flexible. There's a lot of talk about DC being more efficient. I'm going to talk about that in a second when I talk about the Tesla Pros. But in general, with AC coupling, you can have more power in the daytime with multiple inverters, with the solar and the batteries inverter, combining the power together to give you more power. It's also more flexible in terms of being able to install different brands of products together. You can AC couple a lot of different brands with multiple different inverter brands, and you can do more of a plug and play type of deal and pick and choose. With the DC coupled systems, you a lot of time have to choose a specific product that is going to work with the battery and the inverter together. Like it's two products made by the same company that are designed together. So if you're looking to mix and match, the AC coupling gives you a little bit more flexibility. For example, you could go with the Enphase batteries with the Enphase microinverters, but we have been installing the Franklin A-Power 2 battery with the Enphase microinverters a lot lately, and it's working really fantastic. So you could also install a multitude of other AC coupled options with the Enphase system. Whereas with Tesla, you can technically make this battery AC coupled, and you can, but really it's designed to be DC coupled, and there are some limitations when you make it AC coupled that the DC coupling doesn't have. And so in my opinion, even though it's good for technically being AC or DC coupled, it's more of a DC coupled product right out of the gate, and it performs better that way. More daytime power potential. This is just a reiteration of what I said a minute ago, which is that when you combine the power of the microinverters and the power of the batteries inverter together, you have a lot more power potential than a hybrid inverter, where that one inverter is really all that you are reliant on, and that's all that you have. So if you have one Powerwall 3 and a DC coupled system, you really only have the potential of that one inverter. There's no doubling up on the solar and the battery in the middle of the day because it's all bottlenecking through that one inverter. Okay, so let's talk about the pros of the Tesla. Now, the single inverter system, it costs less money. So if your goal is to just save as much money right out of the gate, you don't necessarily have shading problems, then the Tesla system is better. There are a lot of people over the last year or 2 years that would have just not gone solar at all if they hadn't been able to get into a system of the price point that Tesla allows, because of that meter collar really, versus having to do a critical loads panel and a gateway if you're looking for a full home backup system with batteries. So you have to appreciate what Tesla has done for the market. They've really kept a slow and suffering solar market going with this more affordable technology that they brought out. So once again, if getting the best payment or having the lowest price is your goal, Tesla is most likely the best option, especially if you are in a meter collar or backup switch approved utility, which is the majority of California, for example, with a multitude of other places. I'm going to put the list on the screen right now of all the available utilities that use this meter collar. And if you're in any of those utilities, then that Tesla system really has to be looked at The only thing I would be a little wary of is the wait time. Right now, Tesla Powerwall 3s are pretty back ordered on a national basis, and most people are struggling to actually get them. So that's just something to keep in mind. That may change. Look at the date of when I posted this video. It may not be relevant in a few months from now. Another pro is you can argue that DC coupling the battery is more efficient. Now, this is one that I hear from like a lot of DIYers. They say, why would you ever AC couple a battery? You're going to invert the power right at the panel, like with the microinverters. And then when it goes to the battery, you're going to invert it back to DC. And then when you need that power, it's going to invert back to AC so you can use it. That's 3 inversions. You're losing so much power. So technically, yes, I agree that with an AC coupled system, sometimes depending upon the situation, you can have a little bit more of a percentage of power lost in the multiple inversions. But something to keep in mind, just to play devil's advocate, even though I think technically it is a correct statement, is that the only power that's going through the 3 inversions in the event of like the Enphase system is what's going to the battery. So all of the power in both cases, if you're producing the power in real time and then you're using the power, right, in the daytime, it's never going to the battery, and so it's only being inverted once in both of these systems. And so I've seen people do the calculation where they take all of the production for a whole year, the total production for like what a system is going to produce, and then cut the percentage of loss out of that number, which is totally an inaccurate way to do it. You have to just do it based on what the battery is actually going to hold and consume and charge and discharge over the course of a year. So it's not as much power in reality as people think. Okay, and then the other pro is something I already mentioned as well, which is that it's one app if you already have a Tesla EV, which is pretty cool. App jumping isn't super fun to have everything in one place, really sleek. And people that have Teslas, they're very happy when they report how they can see everything, and it's all, because really your solar, battery, and EV, it's still kind of all part of one system. So I think it's cool to have everything together. All right, let's talk about the cons with these two companies. So with Enphase, the natural con is that generally these systems just cost more money. There's more hardware involved. At this point in time, they don't have a meter collar. So especially if you're doing full home backup, you still need to install a critical loads panel and their controller. All of that hardware costs more money. It takes longer to install, and so you're paying for more labor, takes more space up on your wall, and it's just not as sleek. So even though I obviously like it for a lot of reasons I already explained, that is definitely the biggest con of all. I wrote underneath it too, there's no meter collar yet. They say they're gonna have a meter collar, hopefully soon. Please have a meter collar soon, Enphase, but not yet. And then, so another con, which a lot of people don't talk about, is on the existing systems, there's been a lot of issues with the consumption monitors. That's what this CT is, communicating with the controller. So the CTs are in the main panel and they're talking to the controller, and there's been some issues with having the sine waves be mixed up with what's actually being used versus pulled from the grid. And because of that, there's been quite a bit of malfunctions with these batteries that have been a hassle for the contractors to have to go back and do all the service work to fix everything. And so that is mostly being figured out, and they are coming out with new tech hopefully soon that's going to fix a lot of these problems. But that is a con that not every system is experiencing, but a handful of systems that we install have had these CT issues. All right, let's talk about Tesla's cons. Now, the single point of failure with that hybrid inverter, at the end of the day, the inverter, like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, is the Achilles heel of these systems. Panels hardly ever fail. Even the slightly cheaper brands, they really don't fail that often. It's very rare. And the batteries themselves, those LFP cells, those also really don't fail very often at all. It's usually the inverters that are failing, or there's some kind of software issue. So when it comes to the Tesla systems, currently I have about 40 to 50 that I've actually installed with my multiple contractors I work with, and we've already had to replace 3 Powerwall 3s and 2 of the meter collars. And so maybe these are just kind of the first generations of this new product, and they're working out the kinks. But if you are with a Powerwall 3 and that inverter fails, then you could be out of power for as long as it takes to get that warranty claim figured out, which is not 2 days. It takes longer than that for these warranty claims to be figured out. In general, it's just less reliable statistically with Enphase. If you really search, you know, there's always stories of people that are saying, oh, half my Enphase microinverters failed. Most of those people are using M or S series products, which are going to be pre-2017. Anything that's IQ6 or newer, IQ6, IQ7, IQ8, which is the current generation, that's 2017 to current. Those have been almost perfect. I literally have less than 10 that have failed ever, and I've installed thousands of those. And so these are just generally more reliable than Tesla in general. And if something happens with an Enphase microinverter, like I said, it's only one panel that really is affected. So not only is it less consequential if something does happen, but it's also less likely. So if reliability is one of the things that you really value, definitely a reason to look at Enphase a little bit more. Now, still to this day, I know that they make the argument, still those who are really pushing these DC coupled options like Tesla, that it's way more efficient with the one inversion. I still hear a lot of people talking about the microinverters having clipping sometimes, where that means that the panel is producing more than what that microinverter can really produce. But still to this day, out of all the, because I'm the one that people call after their system's installed if it's not working right, I still to this day have way more calls from people that are having production issues from these string systems, whether it's an entire string not working or just overall the production seems to be lower than estimated because of maybe shading or something that has changed since we installed it. And so in general, even though you can make some of these efficiency arguments that the AC couplings could be slightly less efficient, or sometimes you could have clipping in theory, those are generally negligible subtractions in your production. Whereas if you have an entire string that's malfunctioning for 3 months while the contractor's trying to get it fixed, like that's half your power or something that you're just not getting. And so once again, if something happens over here, it's a lot more consequential because you have more reliance on less parts. So with that being said, I just wanted to give an objective review of both of the equipment and systems that these companies offer, because both of these companies have their place and they're both filling a need. And so I hope that this video helped. Once again, I service about 30 states. So if you live in any of these states that I'm popping up, the ones in green, please give me a call and I can help you out and put you in touch with the very best local person who understands your utility. It can actually give you a proper consultation. Of course, we need to sell systems to make a living and feed ourselves and our families, but we want to help sell you the system the right way and actually help you understand what you're even buying. And so with that being said, I hope you found this video helpful and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much.